Alright, what's up YouTube? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe before I get into the video. Today I got the best and the worst free agency signings of all time by Austin Sweat. Let's get into the reaction.
With NBA free agency going on as we
Oh,
speak, it's
there we go.
only right that we look at the best and worst free agency signings in league history. But also make sure you're subscribed because soon I'll be making a video reviewing every NBA free agency moved this year. As for one of the worst free agency signings of all time though, there's no better way to start than with Chandler Parsons. Nothing about this one makes sense to this day. Parsons was 28 years old, coming off of 2 lackluster years with the Dallas Mavericks, where both seasons ended in him having right knee surgery. But the Memphis Grizzlies still gave him a 4-year, $94 million contract. The deal was so bad, he played 95 total games for Memphis, got booed by his own team's fans, and basically straight up retired after that contract was over. We may never see a deal go this poorly again. Well, on the other hand, one of the best we've ever seen has got to be when Shaq joined the LA Lakers. Towards the end of his run there, Orlando Magic fans turned on Shaq and basically said that he wasn't worth a max contract. And that was when he decided to go to whatever the other team would offer him the most money possible, which just so happened to be the Lakers, which was the team who just landed Kobe Bryant in the NBA draft, and the rest was history. What also goes down in history is how terrible of a GM Magic Johnson was for that same team. You'd think the guy that lived, breathed, and bled basketball his entire life would know how to run a team. But signing Luol Deng to a 4-year, $72 million deal and Timofey Mozgov to a 4-year, $64 million contract in 2016 was wild. How do you make two of the worst signings of all time within 2 days of each other? Both guys only played about 50 games of their deals for the Lakers too, and their contracts only lasted 2 seasons before Deng got bought out from his and Mozgov got waived from his. Now another all-time great that knows all about bringing in terrible, undeserving players is Michael Jordan. And he actually has one of the crazier free agency signing stories. Because after winning the Bulls their 4th championship, MJ was actually an unrestricted free agent, and he was able to negotiate the craziest deal of all time. He signed a 1-year, $30 million contract, when each team's salary cap was only $26.9 million. So his contract alone was higher than the entire team's payroll. Now he was able to do this because at the time there was no maximum salary rules for players, and teams were allowed to go over the $26.9 million cap if they were re-signing one of their own guys. So the Bulls paid Jordan $30 million, he won them their 5th title, they then gave him another 1-year $33 million contract the next year, and it paid off when he won them their 6th championship. But the $33 million season would stand as the highest earning season of any NBA player all the way until 2017. The Bulls had to pay massive money, but the fact that Jordan held up his end of the deal made it one of the best possible moves for the Chicago Bulls, who have also seen themselves on the not so pretty side of a free agent signing. Because you see, Derrick Rose won League MVP in only his 3rd season. Well, at the end of the next season, he was going to be a free agent. So the Bulls did the obvious thing and gave him a max 5-year, $94 million contract extension. But it was just 5 months later in that same season that he tears ACL and all his injuries started. Listen, of course the Bulls couldn't have known what Derrick's future would become, and they had to give him the deal. But bad luck kinda ruined this one, because his new contract didn't even start before he got his first major injury, and completely changed as a player. Someone whose signings always paid off though was LeBron James, and in his career he signed with the Heat, Cavs, and Lakers all as a free agent. Listen, there's always talk against LeBron for building his own teams, but at least he always played through all his contracts and has never requested a trade, especially in this era. A former star-level teammate of LeBron actually goes down as one of the worst free agent signings, and that's Chris Bosh. I'm not talking about when he helped form Miami's Big Three, but instead in 2014, after the Big Three era was already over. LeBron announced his move to Cleveland, then Bosh announced he had signed a 5-year, $118 million contract to stay with Miami. But only 44 games into that deal, he developed a blood clotting issue. He was ruled out for the season, tried to play the next year, but was forced to sit out again, and that basically ended his career in 2016. But since it was technically an injury, Miami had to pay him the rest of his deal all the way until 2019. But while we're still speaking of LeBron's teammates, it'd be hard not to mention Ray Allen as one of the Miami Heat's best ever free agent signings, and I'm sure James is still grateful for. It was a huge deal that they were able to steal away from Boston, especially considering that the Celtics were offering him a 2-year, $12 million contract, and Miami only gave him 2 years and $6 million. So he was definitely a bargain. But now if we're talking worst free agent contracts, mentioning Gilbert Arenas is a must, because in 2008 his contract with the Wizards was up. Now even though he had suffered a season-ending knee injury 13 games into the previous year, Washington still desperately wanted to keep him, but Gilbert said he'd only resign if they gave his his friend Anton Jameson a new deal. So he signed on for 4 years and $50 million.
4 years,
Then Arenas
$50
signed for
million
6 years and $111 million on a max deal. Then his entire career proceeded to fall off a cliff. He was traded 55 games later, and the Magic waived his contract. So this is probably one of the overall most severe cases. On a brighter note, a free agent signing that definitely didn't disappoint was Chauncey Billups. You see, the Timberwolves brought Chauncey in as a free agent to come off their bench. But when a player got injured, Chauncey stepped up as a starter and had a breakout year. But even then, the Wolves decided not to re-sign him, so he was picked up by the Pistons on a 5-year, $35 million contract. Then just 2 years later, he leads that team to an NBA championship. So it was a great move for Detroit to recognize his talent, while Minnesota is clearly great at letting star point guards walk for no apparent reason. But speaking of that Pistons team, Ben Wallace decided to walk away from them in 2006 after his relationship with the team deteriorated. Now, as we know, in his entire 6 years there, he was a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year and became one of the greatest defensive players of all time. So that's what the Chicago Bulls thought they were getting when they signed him to a 4-year, $60 million contract, only for Ben to almost completely fall off from there on out. He was just never the same after leaving Detroit. There was something about their system that really made him who he was, and it was never replicated. He was just a perfect fit on that team, which also reminds me of another perfect fit in Andre Iguodala. And the fact that the Golden State Warriors were able to sign him as a free agent easily made it an all-time great signing. He had just come off leading the Nuggets to one of their most successful seasons at the time. And in that year, the Warriors beat them in the playoffs, so the offseason came around and he turned down a 5-year deal from Denver to take a 4-year, $48 million contract for Golden State. The move was a little snaky, but we can't complain because it turned that team into a dynasty. A dynasty that at one point featured Kevin Durant. But when his time was up with that team, he actually left by a sign-and trade. The Warriors signed him to a 5-year max contract, then traded him to the Nets for D'Angelo Russell. And this was good move all around. For the Warriors, they signed KD as a free agent, then got a star player back in return instead of flat out losing a max player. And for the Nets, they got a D'Angelo Russell for Kevin Durant trade. Now, I still can't wrap my head around how bad of a signing another former number 2 overall pick got in
I thought KD all he cared about was championships. Just went to freaking finals 3 years in a row with the Warriors. And you want to leave just because what? Draymond Green don't like him? Nigga, dumbass bitch.
Turner. 6 years into his NBA career, Evan Turner was averaging 10 points and 5 rebounds a game, 27% from 3, and he was 28 years old. So the Portland Trailblazers, who were trying to win now, gave that man a 4-year, $70 million contract. And to prove how bad it turned out, just a month later, Evan Turner was competing for the starting small forward spot with Maurice Harkless in the preseason and lost. So he pretty much came off the bench for his entire 4 years there. It's pretty depressing. Now, one of the all-time best free agency signings easily goes to Steve Nash. You see, Steve played for the Dallas Mavericks and with Dirk for 6 years, and had a solid run with them. But when his contract was up, Mark Cuban said he didn't want to risk signing a 30-year-old Steve Nash to a long-term deal, so he only offered him 4 years for $36 million. While on the other hand, Phoenix saw his potential and gave him a 6-year, $63 million contract. And in the first 2 immediate seasons after signing with the Suns, he became a 2-time back-to-back league MVP. Just imagine your favorite team picking up a free agent who wasn't even an all-star in the previous year, and he instantly becomes one of the best players in the NBA. Robert Horry is another excellent free agent signing, even if Steve Nash would say otherwise. But the fact that the Spurs were able to pick up the guy who at the time was a 5-time NBA champion was huge. The Lakers stopped using him right, and he had family in Texas, so he wanted to sign with the Spurs. And after hitting a game winner in the 2005 NBA Finals, and hip-checking Steve Nash in the 2007 playoffs, allowing them to win that series, the Spurs won titles in both years, which they wouldn't have won without Big Shot Bob. On the other hand, another all-time worst signing goes to the Orlando Magic. You see, Bismack Biyombo averaged 5 points, 8 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks a game off the bench for the Toronto Raptors. So in the offseason, the Magic gave him a 4-year, $72 million contract to still bring him in off the bench. Yeah, I don't know. But then, of course, the last all-time great signing has to go to the Miami Heat for bringing in Jimmy Butler in 2019. The 76ers chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy, so he signed and traded to the Heat. A mistake that will always go down as one of the biggest in Philly.
Imagine if the Heat had, not the Heat, but the 76ers had James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and like that team would have been stacked, bro.
Seeing how Butler's now led Miami to 2 NBA Finals, and for a guy brought in as a free agent, you couldn't ask for any more. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it.
And man, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe for more basketball reactions. That's gonna do it, man. Peace.